to you all. Thank you all for joining us for our part two of If Not Now, When conversation. I'm delighted to be hosting our brilliant speakers again, which I think was 10 weeks ago, but Eric was questioning saying it was 8 weeks ago. So I'm not sure now because I don't want to check right now, but let's say 8 weeks just to be safe, where we had an amazing conversation and over 1,000 of you joined us globally. For those of you that don't know, I'm the founder and CEO for Audalis and Involve, and we are very much focused on changing representation at a senior level in business, as well as helping companies to be more inclusive. And we wanted to host this conversation because the original one was so incredible in terms of the content and expertise we received from the three speakers that we wanted to continue that momentum and see what's been happening in the last 10 weeks. So we want it to be as interactive as possible. I can see lots of comments already in the chat function. Please do use them. Have your comments, your questions, and we'll try and get through as many of them as possible so it's interactive as possible. And we have lots of talking points to get through. So I'm going to kind of launch straight into it because last time we ran out of time very quickly. So the panelists are all going to introduce themselves very quickly with their name, their company, and where they are in the world, and then answer the first question. And kind of where we want to start with is, it's been like 10 weeks since our last discussion. Tell us what's been happening in your company since then. Like what has been happening on Black Lives Matter and the race agenda in your business. And Erica, let's start with you first.
Great. Okay, great. Yes, I was telling Suki, I didn't think it was a full 10 weeks, and maybe that's because it's all been a blur for me. And I was afraid that my life, it was just passing me by and that I'm just like lost 2 weeks as a part of that. So I'm Erica Irish Brown. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer at Goldman Sachs. I've been there for 2 years, and this last year has been really quite eventful. So I shared with this group the last time the amount of dialogue that we were having as a firm. And I think dialogues that I've been on the street for 30 years, I've been in D&I for 15 years. I had not witnessed a dialogue on race like I have since Memorial Day weekend, basically, and honest dialogue, raw dialogue. The storytelling that I was talking about the last time ran deep. I think I mentioned, sorry, because I'm trying to timestamp things, the training that we did, right, to give managers and leaders the tools to have conversations on race in the workplace. We wanted to create a sense of comfort. We wanted to give people a sense of how to launch, how to listen, and also how to forgive when people make mistakes, and rather have people feel comfortable making mistakes and not having the dialogue at all. We also shared our training with our clients, which I thought was really exciting, and just showed how D&I can have commercial connections as well. So we really reached a lot of people around having the dialogue on race and beginning to move from talk into action. So I think I mentioned some of our plans, which have now moved forward around a reverse mentoring program that we wanted to launch with senior leaders, with our Black colleagues as reverse mentors. We're doing, the mentors are VP level and above. We did not want to sort of create a burden for our junior Black talent. Yeah. And also we're rolling out an ally program and really focusing on everyday allyship. That will be leveraging a train the trainer model so that we will reach the majority of our organization in talking about everyday allyship and allies for racial equity at Goldman Sachs.
So a lot, basically. That's a long list of, and I'm sure there's probably more that you've been doing.
Yeah, that's the abridged version, and I didn't
yeah,
want to give enough context to give the forward. But again, the amount of interest, engagement, and voluntary engagement, even the training that I had mentioned last time that was originally put together just for the managers of Black analysts and associates, like a group of like 600, there was this groundswell of interest in taking that training, and we ended up training over 3,000 leaders at Goldman Sachs and our clients.
Fantastic. So,
Yeah.
Sandra, I'd like to ask you that same question. What's been happening in the last 10 weeks at Nielsen?
I'm Sandra Sims-Williams. I'm the SVP for Diversity and Inclusion at Nielsen. Excuse me. This is, as Erica said, it is a groundswell. It is a difference. And I certainly have been in D&I for over 15 years. So for this time, it's wild. It's wild that people are actually, they're holding you accountable, but they also want to know, tell me how, get me involved. I want to know what I need to do. We talked about this a little bit, but we had developed a workshop called From Witness to Advocate. And this is about microaggressions. So it's an online opportunity for people to, we launched this last week, no, week before last, because I was on vacation last week. And people are very grateful for it. People are asking questions about what to do. So one of the things I realized is that you need to be in smaller groups. So we created smaller roundtable conversations so that people felt safer to ask questions. And there were no, there are no questions that we would turn away from. We need to answer and be accountable right now to each other. We also set up a workshop for our Black associates. This was what I call differentiated workshop on career development. It's called The Power of Choice Efficacy. And we had 2 sessions for them, and we will do that again for our Latinx associates. Then we are going to also provide for our leadership, and the next layer down, it's called Courageous Conversation. And that's to help and equip them with the language and the sort of understanding of how they approach this. Now, I had volunteers of leaders who went right in on this. And I have to say, I do appreciate it, because I'm one person and I have a small team. It's like people have to step in and step up in this conversation. And I did have leaders who did that and took the chance. They certainly were not, I didn't train them or do anything like that, but they took the chance to have the conversation. And I think that is absolutely the difference this time over the past. People are ready.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And fantastic, Sandra, thank you. And Wayma, what about you, the last 10 weeks at Sanofi?
Yeah, so I agree with Erica. It went like a flash of time, and certainly a lot has changed all over the world from a social perspective that we're feeling. So my name is Wayma Hoover. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer for Sanofi, and I'm based here in Paris, France. So for us, 3 key things happened. One, we brought our CEO to have a discussion with another one of our ex-com members, and we have it focused on addressing our Black community within Sanofi. And so it was our conversation where we had open and honest dialogue, where we encourage our colleagues to share questions in advance, but also really ask and what the expectations and accountability is of the company, and what do our CEO and our ex-com leadership really expect now that we are making commitments to really drive facilitated change. And what was nice around that is that we were able to have openness and some very necessary truths come out, which I think is so critical at this point, in sharing that they don't know all the answers, and that we do need to hear. We do want to actually coalesce and bring all the feedback and insight so that we can bring in our colleagues, our Black and our African American colleagues all over our global markets together to be a part of the solution. So it's just not having a talking ear, but a really collaboration. And what was really remarkable about that session that we did in early July was that it really engaged and was a symbol to our other leaders to start having these honest conversations within their businesses. So literally, it started a whole movement of our business leaders having one-on-one, very small group, an unfacilitated dialogue. And then we're capturing the feedback, the insights, the recommendations so that we can truly look at how do we reform it. So we have in place, with my team, looking at some core strategic imperatives that we're going to be rolling out as of September based on these discussions. So that's one that I think was actionable, but has continued and really, if you will, started a whole business trend to stop, pause, and make sure we understand what's going on within their communities. The second thing that we have done is really around this having a program called Upstander Program. And we wanted to really focus on that because as we have been in confinement and quarantine, and depending on where you are in your world, you may be in it currently or back in it again. But we have all been bystanders, right? Seeing what's happened. We want to shift that to what are the actions and how can you take ownership and do things within your sphere of control. I think that is so important right now because you hear and you see from the all of the marches we see, the people, the activism that is coming up, that people are doing something. But we wanted to make sure as we have this Upstander program, we're very specific around what can you do as a manager, as looking at the development and promotion of your team, as a colleague in your interactions with each other, and how do you make sure that you are mindful of those interactions and creating the environment, and also as an organization, how are we now fulfilling our commitment and living our values, both internally and externally. And the third thing that we have done is really drive a platform that we're doing a podcast internally and externally, that we're just taking colleagues that have completely different backgrounds and giving them a platform of exchange to learn about each other. And of course, we started with the Black Lives Matter. And so we wanted to do this and having people represent, if you will, very different spectrums, because we wanted to have a safe place where we can actually build the capability to seek to understand, to not feel that you are being judged for being politically incorrect, but to really engage in the honest conversation with the intent of creating a much more collaborative, inclusive, and welcoming environment at our organization. And so I'm very proud of that. And we've had 2 already, and we have already topics that we have coming up, talking about LGBT, mental health. That will be our next sessions. And so our first one will be launching in a couple of weeks. So I'll share with everyone. But those are the three actions we've taken since then.
I mean, to be fair, hearing the 3 of you in succession, there's a lot happening in each of your businesses, which I think is fantastic. But how do we ensure that momentum is sustained and it continues? Because you can see the BLM protests are starting to subside, yes, and we just don't want this enthusiasm. So how are you making it sustainable?
Goals.
Sorry?
I said set goals. I'm sorry.
That's what I was going to say. That's what my last statement was. We're pulling it into our accountability, our metrics, right, that we're shifting. We're changing. It will be a part of our accountability metrics, and not just person in your leadership.
And so when you talk about accountability metrics, for the people that are watching at home, some of them might not understand what that means. So make it real for them. Give us some examples of what they might be.
For representation, looking at our key talent processes, looking at how we are identifying successors, every one of those metrics we have now having a lens for diversity, particularly for African American, for Blacks, not only Blacks outside of France, but our Black and underserved communities across our global markets.
Yeah. Sandra, anything to add? Yeah, anything to add about sustaining it?
Yeah, you have to make things transparent to everyone. I think it's sort of peel back the onion, make things transparent, and let people know that we are setting targets and goals towards something. When you show your ability to do that, people sort of join you and feel safer in joining you because they know that you're about something. It also requires, of course, your leadership. Your leadership has to be advocates. They have to be vocal and actually very open about who they are in this road to success.
Yeah, I agree. And I will add that, at Goldman, we started with aspirational hiring goals at the analyst associate level, which was about 70% of our hiring each year. And last week we went public with our VP representation goals for women, for Black in the Americas and UK, and for Hispanic Latinx in the Americas. And, you know, the nice thing about, like, you know, for junior talent, hiring goals and aspirational goals are most appropriate. But for that middle, right, to have set representation goals, from my perspective, not only do we have to be accountable around lateral hiring, but you can't just accomplish it from lateral hiring. So you have to actually focus on the people that you have in the talent pipeline and the development and retention of the people that you have. So that's been our approach to really create a pipeline to leadership at Goldman Sachs to ascend to MD and partner level.
Excellent. And we're going to come on to the retention of talent later on. Now, in terms of the way of making it more interactive, we've had a great question from Genevieve Elliott. She has said, in my role in HR, I come across so many people who simply do not believe there is discrimination and inequality. The old phrase, you can bring a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink, comes to mind. How do you bring those leaders to the realization that their long-defined opinions and beliefs are inaccurate? Sandra, what do you think?
What do I personally think, or what do I have to say? No. I'm sorry.
You can be as controversial as you like.
So first of all, I think it has to be about the business. You have to show people the business results that come from having a more inclusive perspective. And if you cannot understand business-wise why this is necessary, I'm not sure I understand what we can do from there. But business objectives are very important to helping people sort of turn the corner. The other piece, though, is human injustice. If you cannot see the human injustice that has occurred on the U.S. Landscape, I'm not sure I understand. It's not made up. And that's why when we talk about educating yourself, it is very important that you do that. If they even read the New York Post op from John Lewis, they might get some sense of what has happened in this country. And I am talking US based right now, and it has come from 401 years. And for someone who cannot see that, I'm not sure what else to help them with.
Anyone, Wayma, anything to add on that point about bringing someone, getting them to realize that discrimination and inequality does exist if they don't believe it?
Yeah, I think that the way that I have really driven it, because that will really hit home, it's really around the conversation around privilege, which I know a lot of people may not understand. But taking it to a fundamental level, privilege is when you think something is not a problem because it is not a problem to you personally. And that's where we have to represent, and to Sandra's point, really bring it back to the impact to the business. Because if you are not recognizing something that has systemic impact in the communities that you operate in, with your customers, with your patients, does not give them the accessibility, does not give them the opportunity to take part or take advantage of the services you're delivering, you are not fulfilling your business strategy and operations fully. And so this is where we have to really shape around how do we create the equal access and really drive those interventions to making sure that privilege will not be a reason or a limiting factor for allowing the best talent, the best people, the best decisions, the best ideas to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
But taking it one step further, like, doesn't there, if this person, you can carry on doing that, you can try and explain this is the business strategy, the business objectives, but they fundamentally just don't think discrimination exists and inequality, shouldn't there be consequences for that kind of attitude if it's displayed in behaviors that is holding other talent back, for instance, if they're in management or the ExCo or management committee, like what kind of consequences should there be for those individuals?
Well, I would tend to think if they're in leadership and the organization has accountability for D&I, then there has to be consequences. Absolutely. Now, people will say, well, you can't just fire people. Well, it's not about firing someone. It's about bringing them to a place of understanding that this is about our business. This is about our business. I have always said it is about the bottom line, and it truly is. If you can get there, you'll understand. And there are many examples, by the way, of how diversity in perspective has changed the bottom line. So I'm not sure I would do anything more than, put them in a room and just give them a screen so they can keep seeing all the examples. And if you can't get it by then, okay, maybe you need to leave. I don't know.
But that's why accountability is so important, and having metrics and tracking certain goals and performance, and having surveys and looking at inclusion and manager effectiveness and things of that nature. Because if you should not be able to be an exceeds rating, or whatever your rating system is, if you are not an inclusive leader, right? For example, or if you are not meeting your metrics for your division, let's say on analyst hiring, whatever those metrics and goals are, whatever's on that scorecard, however you're looking at inclusive leadership and evaluating leaders on, people management, manager effectiveness, those should be inputs to performance, which should be inputs to compensation, and there should be consequences. And ultimately, Suki, you were saying if they don't believe it, I don't necessarily, I'd like to educate people, but I don't necessarily need to change your beliefs. I need to change your behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can believe what you want to.
Absolutely.
As long as your actions are in line with our corporate values and what we've laid out as the standards for behavior at our firm and the standards of performance at our firm. So that's the only other thing. I don't feel like everybody has to just feel it in their heart. To Sandra's point, there's real business case for diversity. I think we all know it's the right thing to do. I even think for people who thought that, racism didn't exist, I think the storytelling has been a real education, because there was also information that frankly wasn't freely shared that might have led people to believe just because we show up a certain way, mm-hmm. that we're not subject to racism every day in a public environment. So I do think that there should be enhanced understanding, and even if there's not, it's all about the behaviors and meeting performance standards at our organizations.
I agree, and if I just may add, I think that it really should not be decoupled from the fundamental expectations of manager capability. This is a core, inclusive leadership is a core component of management capability. And if they are not doing this, they're not able to leverage talent. And these things will come to surface. I'm all about data, really showing evidence of a manager and a leader's role. If you do a people or engagement survey, you can actually cut that by demographic, by people, by age, and you will see what that person, management, and that leader's behavior is. If you have cultural assessments, if you actually look at the performance ratings in the department or team, you can do diagnostic due diligence and get data to really point to and show what that person's behavior with. Because I'm also with Erica. I don't really care about what you believe, but just as long as you come into the organization and really live the values, truly live the values, and really act in accordance with the aspiration of the culture, of our inclusion and diversity commitment, and really demonstrate that in everything you do. And if you don't, it will come out. It will come out in the end. And then that's where the accountability will actually manifest in the performance rating, compensation, and such.
Yes, it will. I'm really keen to talk about allyship because, Sandra.
Yeah, I have one more thing. So when I first started in diversity, I had a white male leader say to me, and he was a friend, so he said it, he said, listen, I like you, I'm all about this, but I know some people are not about it. And he said, the truth be told, the only way you make these white males pay attention is you hit them in their pocket.
Yeah.
He says, and I am telling you the truth. And that's accountability.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Yeah, no, agreed.